All right. There you go. All right.
All right.
You get any wiggles out? Or you good to go?
Yeah, this whole video. Okay, we go down.
All right. Here with Seabron Weaver,
Hey,
and he owns Phase Construction. Actually, why don't you tell us what you do?
so I'm the owner of Phase Construction. We do construction and holiday lighting, and I'm also the owner of Next Level Detailing.
I don't like the echo in here, dude. Do you like that echo?
No, absolutely not.
Let's go right outside.
Dun, 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 dun. Maybe you want a taller chair? Can that be our, like you put that computer on there?
Sure.
I'll grab one.
Well. I might still sit on that chair. Make this taller.
We can pull that bed. Hey.
Yeah, just don't touch anything. All right, sweet. I'm here with Seabron Weaver.
Hey guys.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm the owner of Phase Construction and Next Level Detailing. Phase Construction is a construction company. We specialize in roofing, siding, and gutters. And then we also, in our downtime or winter time, we do holiday lighting. Next Level Detailing is a mobile detailing company. And then we also offer in-shop detailing as well.
How did you get started with Next Level?
So Next Level was kind of like a family art. My grandfather owns Steve's Auto Reconditioning. He's been doing that since 72. So a little over 50 years. He's been detailing cars. So really it was just something that was passed down to my father and passed down to me. Some third generation car detailer.
Nice. So did you take it over from your grandpa, or did you start your own thing?
So what drove me to start Next Level was really just seeking a new way of doing car detailing. At a younger point in my career, me and my grandfather started to butt heads, and he kind of told me, hey, if you want it different, go see if it's done differently. So that kind of led me to venture out to like try different dealerships who were offering like high-end detailing. That led me to be at eventually Mercedes-Benz, where I was the lead detailer. But I still just found myself like hitting a ceiling there. And I was just like, I want to do more. And they just weren't really offering that. So me and at the time, one of my coworkers put our heads together and we came up with Next Level Detailing. A few things transpired and I just kind of took over the company myself. But yeah, we're still in good standing. And yeah, Next Level is where it is today as a mobile and an in-shop detailing company.
So what is the next level for Next Level? What is it that was your grandpa was doing, or these other places were doing that you didn't see happening that you wanted to implement in your own business?
So I wanted to do mobile detailing, and then just with more of a niche on high-end and luxury vehicles. So one thing was Mercedes, they didn't really care about like ceramic coatings. They didn't care anything about mobile details. And then kind of the same thing on my grandfather's end. It was just too, I don't even know, it was too like, what's the word for new?
Like a standardized detailing is what he was doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha.
From my grandfather, who works with the dealerships, Mercedes with same with dealerships. They have one certain way of doing things. They've been doing it for 30 years, and that's just what works for them. Me, I just kind of had other ideas that I wanted to take out to the market and test.
Okay, got it. That's cool. So what, I mean, you're building next level. You've been doing that for what? Few years now, 2-3 years?
Yep.
What is it that got you into doing phase construction? I mean, that's a whole different industry, which
Yeah.
from what I understand, you didn't have any real experience in.
Yeah.
Right. In fact, I need to tell a story because Seabron will tell how we started, but we started phase together.
Yeah.
Seabron owns it now. I don't own any of it anymore. But I remember we went on the first job that we did, we were doing a roof, and there were some other little odds and ends that we needed to do with like siding and stuff. I remember telling Seabron to go to the store and buy some caulk, some outdoor caulk that we could paint over, paintable caulk, and he didn't know what that was.
Yeah, seriously.
And him going out and like, so with caulk, you're supposed to lay the caulk and then with a putty knife, you know, putty it, make it smooth so you can paint over it or whatever. And I remember him going out with just the caulk gun, trying to use the caulk gun to like smooth it out. And it was a rough little start.
Yeah, it was messy. Messy first job.
It's a little better than that now, but give us a little backstory. What got you from doing next level, really focusing on that, to shifting and juggling 2 different businesses in totally different industries?
I think so like I always prided myself for being a very good detailer, and operating next level with that same sense of pride. But I'd gotten like a lot of small notions from people that next level was just like a stepping stone. It was like the beginning of learning, you know, how business operates, and that, you know, to reach any, like, I would say large level of success was going to take another business. So I kind of just started kind of exploring around, looking at, you know, other industries, like some of my detailing clients were actually in. And construction was one of the ones that stuck out to me. It seemed like the most profitable. I kind of already had like a slight idea of like, hey, I could sub out all this stuff. I just didn't really know how to do that. So yeah, I would say really it was the margins and construction that first like appeased me, because I was in the point where I was like, I want the business to be successful, but make a lot of money. And construction seemed like it had pretty good margins. I also had one of my clients, he owns a $10 million construction company, and he did that. And so the same time I started Next Level, he started Perfect Steel. And in that same time frame, he built his company from like 0 to 10 million, and I went to like 0 to 100,000 at best. So I was like, there's definitely something there. And that's kind of what gave me that first notion, like, maybe I could do this. So I started Next Level Contracting, and pretty much made a very generic 1-page business plan. Like, this is everything I need to like get started. And then kind of put that on pause. I got to the point to where I was studying for my general contractor's license, and just kind of stagnant at that level of the business. Still operating Next Level at the time. And then I actually came and detailed a vehicle for Tyler.
Share that story. Because how did we meet?
So me and Tyler met actually probably about 2 to 3 years ago. I was, you know, just beginning Next Level on my own, having some level of success for myself, and I detailed one of Tyler's trucks. He's actually just moved here from Utah, and he had some beater down silver truck. It was like one of the grossest trucks I've ever seen. And he's like, I need you to clean this. So I remember like just dumping like gallons of cleaner inside of that thing, getting it clean. And essentially I was kind of picking Tyler's brain throughout that conversation. It was just like, you know, what are you doing here? What are you using this truck for? And he kind of told me like, you know, we had a pest control company in Utah. We sold off for X amount of money. And immediately, as I was hearing his own background story, I was like, wow, this is a level of success that I'd want to be at. So I kind of just started asking him, you know, how did you do that? What are some things that I could do to like progress me to the next level? At the time, he referred me a couple audiobooks, and I took them very seriously. And I did see a massive level of success that kind of helped propel my business with just 2 audiobooks and like the motivation to start my own course. So I kind of just took that and just kept going. But it was enough to get me forward, but not enough to get me ahead, if that makes sense. So I hit another wall. About a year and a half later, still running next level detailing with a lot of the principles that I learned, but still, very rudimentary. I detailed one of Tyler's cars again. At this point in time, I had an employee who was working with me, and he actually had helped me automate about 70% of the infield work. And I was detailing the car with Tyler. I actually showed up for that detail because the amount of information that I got from Tyler in such a short amount of time, like, had me hungry. I was like, if this guy calls again, I'm showing up to clean his car. So I showed up to clean his car, and he just kind of started picking my brain about next level. And one thing led to
the same car.
It was not the same car. No, by this time he'd had a whole new fleet of vehicles. They were wrapped, they were like brand new vans. It was a very big eye opener. It was like, wow, like, you've definitely taken a step ahead. So yeah, he started to kind of pick my brain and ask about, next level and the goals that we had for ourselves. And one thing led to another, and we decided, like, hey, why don't we partner together? And if together we can grow next level more than what we could alone, then that would be a partnership worth doing.
Yeah.
So we did that, and for about 2 months, we went really deep dive into the company, just gathering a lot of like information, facts, and just trying to see where the business was at and where we were trying to take it. After about 2 months, we kind of hit a wall again, and we were like, hey, we know we can be successful with this. We're pretty confident, but is this the level of success that we want? And I think we both kind of decided that we wanted to go even higher than next level. Like, what's the next level to next level? And that really kind of led us both into saying, like, well, Tyler at the time, he had his general contractor's license. Me hadn't already started a contracting company that was kind of stagnant. I was like, immediately, well, why not do that? So we decided to, scrap the next level plan for the time being, and really focus in on phase. That probably in less than a year blew up. And
Yeah, where's phase at now?
so phase now, I would say we did about 800K in revenue last year, in about 6 months. We have like a team we went from like 0 subs. Now we have over 20 subs that we can call out. And these are, from roofers, siders, gutter guys, even goes down to guys that can do concrete, framing, electricians. Essentially, we're equipped to do complete builds. We have a warehouse now. We have a couple of company vehicles, and we have an office staff, marketing team. Gosh,
I know one question that people are going to have is, how do you go from having a business idea, we want to do roofing, with no experience in it, not knowing anyone that actually knows how to do roofing? How do you go from that to doing $800,000 in 6 months? What did you do? How did that happen?
First step was Google. That was a very powerful tool for me. What came with, first, we didn't know how we were going to get jobs. So it kind of started once me and Tyler made the decision, like, hey, we're going in, we're doing phase. It was like 2 days later, there was this huge, horrible storm.
You guys so lucky.
We did. We got ridiculously lucky. It was kind of the serendipity of it all. We just started at like the nick of time. But as this horrible storm, it was actually a Direco hurricane came through the area. And it was just devastating our whole city. Tyler was actually out there at like 4 a.m. With another contractor that he had known and had been previously partnered with. And they were just pretty much standing in the rain trying to figure out, how to stay dry and how to keep the house dry. Yeah, there's an entire tree. It was on a roof. So that's kind of how it started as far as like getting those first couple leads. And the leads, essentially, as we went, they kind of like chain reaction. Like, we'd go to Carol's house and she'd say Sharon down the street has something that needs help. Or maybe like Becky around the corner would see us working and say, hey, come look at mine next. But essentially when it comes to like doing the service, we had no clue how to do it. We had no clue who to contact. So really it was, we looked at a few different things. We looked at people that we knew who were in the construction field who could probably like, give us a recommendation. That didn't go very well at first. So I really found us like going down Google and just looking up roofing and then just immediately calling every single person, is just saying, hey, do you offer subcontracting for roofing? If so, what's your rate? Probably shouldn't have started off asking them that what's their rate, should have had our own rate, but we were that new that we just didn't even know what you would even charge. Going down that list and essentially doing that with every single subcontractor kind of helped us start to build a list. And now I would say we even ricocheted off of some subcontractors that we tried in the beginning. We'd ask them like, hey, do you know anyone else? And really it's just word of mouth, basic research was kind of how we found a lot of those subs. They haven't all been great. Some of them have failed, and some of them have been subpar. But I think with the crews that we have now, they're pretty strong. And I trust them to do just about any project I'd have.
I find that often in business that there's this analysis paralysis that happens, especially when you go from knowing where you want to be and where you're at right now, and it's a big gap. You can think of 100 things that need to happen, right? And roofing is like, okay, we need to have a tree company, we need to have a roofing company, we need to deal with permits, we need to deal with licensing, we need to deal with insurance companies and adjusters and public adjusters. Like we don't even know what the heck those words even mean. Like that's how fresh we were to this industry. And I find that it's usually just taking that first step propels you. Once you can figure out how to answer one question, then the next question becomes easier and easier and easier. So I remember for us, we went to we got a call from Google and Ed Smith, and who recently just passed away.
Ed Evans.
Ed Evans. Yeah, it's super unfortunate. And he called us out of the blue. We went that day and he's like, yeah, we had some shingles blow off our roof. What can you do? And we looked at each other. We're like, well, we don't really know. Can we get back to you? And we were like typing online, like, what do we do with shingles? And we found like, if it's from a storm, this guy should call his insurance company. Right. And so that was the next step. So we called Ed and said, hey, have you called your insurance company? Okay, are you able to call them and open a claim and tell us what they tell you? Because we don't really know what the next step is from there. And it just progressed from one thing to the next. Okay, he called his insurance company and he called us and he said, okay, well, he assigned us an adjuster who's going to come out next Tuesday at 8 a.m. Do you want to be there? We're like, yeah. And so we hopped on Google and YouTube and we're like, what the heck is an adjuster? What does he do? Like, how do we maneuver that? And so we went on the roof with this adjuster and we just picked his brain, right? Like, what do you do? What are you doing here? Like, how do we know whether or not a roof is going to be covered by insurance or whether they're going to pay out of pocket? And it just led from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And by the end of it, the insurance company covered this entire roof. By then we had found someone to do the roof and it was a very smooth process, right? And we made money in that process. And then we could look at each other and it's like, we can do something with this, right? We can make a model out of this. And since then you've been able to do 6, 7 insurance jobs and be profitable on most of them.
Just about all of them. Yeah. I would say there's probably only been one deal we've lost on, and that was still being novice. And even at a loss, we've learned, and it's vital information.
Tell us about that. Tell us about the deal where you lost money on from beginning to end and what you learned from it.
So the deal that we lost money on, it was a house in a very respectable neighborhood, like super high end. This is where like all like high end doctors, high end lawyers will live, basically mansions. We promised the client, and this is kind of where we bit ourselves in the butt, not knowing much about insurance. We promised the client, hey, we're going to get you a full roof replacement. It's going to be nothing but the deductible out of your pocket. And we really rode that hard. But we pretty much were under a presumption based off of the work that we did with other insurance companies that, if we showed them X amount of damage, they were just going to give us a full replacement. This was Allstate, and they were not that same way. It was pretty much a fight just to get, a fraction of the coverage. After a lot of duking back and forth, Allstate covered the project, but they only covered it to the extent of like they were going to cover about half of the roof based off of their estimates.
There's something called ACV and RCV, and up to then we had only experienced with RCV, which is what we think of with insurance is, hey, there's damage, and insurance company says, okay, this whole roof needs to be replaced. This is how much it's going to cost to replace the roof. This is the check we're going to send you. And we kind of went in with that assumption that would be the case with all the houses. This is the first house where they told us your roof needs to be replaced. We're going to cover the cost of the roof. And we're like, okay, sweet. We know about how much that should cost. So we gave an estimate to the homeowner. But then the insurance company later came back and said, we are covering the cost of the roof, but according to the insurance policy, we're depreciating a big chunk of it. And so we got about half of the money, but we had already given a quote to the homeowner. So we felt kind of screwed. It ended up being about a break-even process. But what did you learn from that?
Well, what I learned is that you don't make any promises when it comes to insurance until you see the final approved numbers. And then in that same case, you never know what's going to happen on the job. Things do happen. So you always want to stick to your margins. So if you're at we wanted to profit 30% on that job, no matter what, we don't want to cut that number, because if something does come up without that 30%, there's no incentive to make that right. It actually starts to take you into the red, which I would say we probably lost about $800 on that job. There was a couple portions of it that needed to be repaired and fixed. And that essentially was just kind of straight out of pocket for us.
Do you feel like that $800 was a loss, or did you feel like it was an investment to help you? Like, how did you learn from that? You lost $800 on a job. How did you learn from that on the next job to make money the next time?
Well, on the next jobs, we stopped making promises. We pretty much said, hey, we're going to go through this process with insurance. We're going to get their final approvals, and then we'll work from there. If be the case that they don't cover everything, then we can discuss options for, either financing or, getting, maybe a smaller rate or some way that they can pay for the rest of that deal. But I would say one of the big things I learned is don't promise a full roof replacement until you've gotten the final number. And then two, make sure that you have margin on every job, because nothing is a straightforward line. Things come up, things happen, and you just need a little bit of cushion to make the ball keep rolling.
And sometimes you do lose money, right? And that is okay in business. Sometimes overall as a business, you don't want to lose money, but you're going to have circumstances where there is an issue and it is your issue. It is your mistake, and you need to own up to that. And you need to look at the lost money as an investment and learn from it and grow from it, and not just shut your doors and be like, oh, this business is horrible. Like I'm never going to succeed at this. Right. Now you've also shifted from doing everything in the business yourself to really outsourcing a big chunk of your business, right? There is a lot of the business that you still do yourself, but there's a lot that you don't, right? You're not the one answering all of the calls anymore. You're not the one fighting these insurance claims. And if an insurance company sends back a claim is not being approved, but you feel like it should approved, you now have PA relationships, public adjuster relationships that can go and fight that for you. You're not doing those calls. Tell us about that. What took you from doing everything yourself to building kind of this automation program of specialists to do the work for you that relieves your stress, but also they're doing it way better than if you're doing it yourself and way more consistently. Tell us about that process.
So that process really was first the trial and error, which is, doing it, seeing what works, seeing what's easy. And then after doing everything and seeing everything that needs to be done, listing it all out. So we pretty much just took everything to a whiteboard. We listed it all out and we were like, okay, these are all the jobs. Now we're going to start just delegating them. After so much delegation, we kind of divided it up into a few different categories: office, insurance, marketing, sales, production. And then I found myself still in the sales and the production side, but the marketing, insurance, and the office section were tasks that either weren't being done or weren't being done effectively. So essentially what we did is we started looking for third-party sources that could do these tasks for us and could handle these delegations and take these assignments. It started, I believe, with is it the office or insurance? I would say insurance and office kind of came hand in hand.
Let's focus on insurance, because I know you've been through
Yeah.
a couple different insurance companies to manage your insurance claims. The first one obviously didn't work out.
Right.
You know, why didn't it work out? You remember?
Yeah, I think that they just weren't thorough enough. They weren't doing, well, actually, it was not CSS, not SFY.
The first company we had, basically, we hired them to do a report.
Yeah.
And we said, hey, here are the photos of
Yeah.
all the damage. Here's a report of all the damage. We need you to run it through
Yeah.
this third-party program and tell us how much we should be basically asking the insurance for as far as scope of work and how much money it would cost to do it. And they did a pretty good job at doing that. But the numbers were coming back, we felt kind of low.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we also wanted this insurance company to talk to the insurance company and kind of negotiate why those numbers were justified, and they weren't willing to do this. And so we were getting stuck with having these numbers, not really knowing what they meant, and calling the insurance company and trying to negotiate these numbers without really knowing what these numbers even meant.
Yeah.
And so it's just awkward,
Yeah.
right? And so it came to a point where it's like, okay, we need to keep shopping around. And then we found another company whose reports were higher.
Yeah.
Right. The numbers came higher, but they also didn't negotiate with the company. And
Yeah.
so we found another company who's like, hey, we'll negotiate on your behalf, but and their reports were good. But the issue is they wouldn't negotiate with the company unless the insurance company had already covered a full replacement. That didn't work out. And so finally we found what we were looking for, which is a company who could build a report, negotiate with the insurance company, all the way until it was approved. And if it wasn't approved, they could build us a report that we could give to a public adjuster and really automate the entire insurance part of it. And I'm really proud of Seabron because it's tempting in business to be like, okay, this is what I have to work with. I'm just going to make it work. Right. And he was like, no, I have a dream of how I want this to work. This isn't working. I'm going to keep pushing until I find that right company that can do it the way that I want it to be done. And I'm putting words in your mouth, but I imagine it's made your life so much easier.
Oh yeah, a ton easier, just because, I mean, these people have a skill set of working with these insurance. They have so much more experience with them. And it's just a field that contacting an insurance company is like one of the hardest things to do. You find yourself hitting a lot of dead ends.
You're just getting a hold of them.
Yeah, getting a hold of them is the hardest thing. So having a company that can really take that stress off of your shoulders and they can just build it into their own task system that has a structure and a model that financially makes sense. It was probably really relieving for us. I definitely went through a lot of companies to get to the one that we're at, but I would say the one that we're with definitely has the best personal touch. They represent our company as if they're part of it. Their fee structure is very clear and cut through, and they're also someone that if we don't know anything about insurance, like I have them on speed dial, I can call them and they'll walk me through whatever line item, whatever situation, whatever type of damage. They're like experts in it, and they're experts that are willing to teach.
They have your back.
Yep, they have
your
our
partner.
Back. Yep.
Yeah. Have you ever felt that disconnect in employees where you hire an employee, you give them an SOP, basically, this is how you do your job. This is the goal that I want you to hit. And there's some friction, right? And they're not doing it quite the way that you wanted it to be done. You go in, you audit it. I know you've had to fire some people, right?
Yeah.
How do you manage that? Because employees, someone in your company, you want that same feeling. You want the feeling of partnership. You want the feeling that they've got your back and you've got their back.
Right.
And when you don't feel that synergy, I know you've had to go through some rough hiring and firings. Tell us about that. How do you manage that? And how does that affect your head?
I think my issue with employees, and this is a personal issue, is that I sometimes, well, at least I found myself caring more about the employee than I did about the company. And I think that's just because I have a very personable personality. I like building relationships with people. But what I started to realize is I was caring about the employees, but the employees weren't caring about the company. And therefore, the company couldn't care for anybody. And we were starting to see numbers going up and down, customer satisfaction declining. The revenues just weren't where they should have been. Even processes weren't being done, and they were just being like, just falling through the cracks, essentially. So after a lot of hard thought, I talked with Tyler, and he came and he was like, it's your culture. And that's not like what you guys do. It's not that you guys have a ping pong table or pool table, or you can like eat snacks out the fridge whenever. It's like, it's what you tolerate. That's your culture. And so I really sat on that, and I thought, and I was like, okay, my culture is off. I'm tolerating too much. So I kind of had a conversation with the guys. It's like, hey, we're not tolerating this anymore. And it was almost one by one. The guys just like tested that tolerance, and I just had to let them go. This was hard because I was under the impression like, hey, if they leave the company, like things are gonna go like awry. But what I didn't realize is like things are already like dilapidating. Things are already going downhill with them in the company, and they were actually proponents of that downfall. So I fired everybody, and
Literally everybody.
At one point, yeah. And I just kind of started to take on those tasks, rebuild the processes, and really get a deep dive on what it took to do that work. But then it was also kind of a reassurance to me, like, hey, this is possible, this is doable. I just need to find people that are willing to take the steps to do this. What I also realized is I didn't have very good critical drivers. It wasn't a very clear cut say, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z.
This is what success looks like at the end of the day.
Yeah. So in some cases it would, but then in others it wouldn't. Like for example, one thing, we had guys going home early, and nowhere did I say, hey, you don't clock out until 5. So we were getting it to the point where people were leaving at 2, leaving at 3, leaving at 6, with jobs undone. Or just not communicating with clients. So clients were just like in the dark. It was just creating a lot of issues because we didn't have the right critical drivers, and then also KPIs to like measure these people, to say, are they being successful? I even think at one point in time, we saw one of our KPIs were off, and we're actually wanting them to do double the amount of work that they were supposed to do. So that caused a lot of friction too. And I think it kind of like lowered some morale. So one thing that I really learned in that is, have your KPIs, have your critical drivers, do your due diligence, and like actually make sure, like, are these the right KPIs? Are these the right critical drivers that are going to push you towards the success that you want? And since letting everyone go, I was kind of like a self-realization, like, hey, as a leader, I need to make sure these things are in place so that we don't have guys, falling through the cracks again, essentially. So at some point, I do take it slightly personal that I didn't have those things set in place. So it does kind of give me a little bit of a what if. But at the same time, if you do see faults in a system and people aren't willing to immediately change those, you have to let them go. You have to, because the amount of stress that they took off my shoulders, like let's say I had bad employees, unhappy clients, took off the bad employees, and now I was helping the clients, and now I have happy clients. Mm-hmm. So I just eliminated both the stress. And yes, there was the stress of me doing the jobs at that point, but it was temporary. It was temporary so that I could see, how is this business operating? How do I want it to operate? And then what do those components look like when I put them together?
Yeah, it reminds me of the latest Top Gun movie. Have you seen that yet? Tom Cruise?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
These guys have this impossible mission, right? It reminds me of like in the Death Star, where they have to go and they have to shoot this missile or whatever into this impossible spot. And this was happening in the Air Force as well. And these guys were practicing this drill again and again and again, and they could not do it accurately or within the timeline. Neither, like they couldn't do, and they had to do both together. And it got to the point where Tom Cruise was like, he was like fired because he couldn't teach these guys to do it. And so what he did is he got into an airplane and he went and he did this test thing, and he actually did it within the timeline. He did it faster than the timeline, and he did it more accurately than he needed to do it. And all of a sudden it gave this belief to all of these people, oh, this is possible. right? And this doesn't necessarily correlate. And then all of a sudden, everyone on the team was able to go and perform, and they could meet the timeline and stuff. And this is something that I find, this is kind of tangential to what Seabron was saying, but with employees, he mentioned that he had a KPI that for his guys was basically impossible. And it really was a math error on my part, right? I established this KPI and I said, hey, these guys should be able to hit this, right? But it was never tested, right? It was like, here's the math on a whiteboard. Let's take this and let's enforce it with these guys out in the field. And if they don't do it, they're doing something wrong. And they just couldn't meet it. And so I remember me and Daniel, my brother, going out. It's like, can we hit this number? And we went out and we crushed the number. So it was a math error, and it was a higher KPI than it should have been, but it was still achievable. It was still successful. But the issue is we lowered the KPI down to more realistic standards, and we showed them that we could hit way higher than those standards, and they still weren't able to meet it. That's when it becomes an issue, right? How do you deal with that? Now, if you were to hire someone and you had that situation again, what would you do?
Immediate intolerance. I would either work hand in hand with them and do like a really in-depth audit to see, what are the actual steps they're taking? Are they doing the correct critical drivers? Like, let's say one critical driver is like, hey, if I need to do the lights and we have two guys and we're trying to do the lights in X amount of time, one of the best methods would be what we call the leapfrog method. So I would go and I'd audit them. If they weren't doing the leapfrog method in the way that we taught them, then that would probably be a direct correlation of why they're not hitting the number they have to hit. Then I would say, hey, you have to do it this way. If they're not following those critical drivers, it's immediate termination. I don't have the time or the energy to babysit anymore.
So if they're doing it right, then you're going to coach them.
Correct.
But if you feel like a dentist who went and taught a kid how to brush his teeth properly and floss, and then you go and watch them and they grab a toothbrush and go and throw it away and they don't floss, like that type of owner-employee relationship causes a ton of tension.
Yes.
Right. When you teach someone how to do something one particular way and they're doing it the way that they've always done it, and then they're complaining about their results, that causes tension. But if the employee is able to take that coaching and do it, then we start looking at the critical drivers and KPIs at that point. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're going to coach them. You're going to teach them the correct way to do it.
Yep.
If they are unwilling to change, that's a deal breaker for you.
It's a deal breaker.
If they're willing to change and they can't still hit the numbers, then what?
They're willing to change and they still can't hit the numbers. It's still a deal breaker, unfortunately. We have a KPI that has to be met. If you don't have the capability or the ability or the willingness, they all have to happen in unison. It's a compound effect.
What do you say when people's like, "Damn, that's super harsh"? This is guy's livelihood.
We have to protect the company. Everyone has to be looking out for the company. So it would be in direct opposition if you were to say to keep me here underperforming, that's protecting the company. I'm only hiring people that are wanting to protect the company. And the best way we do that is following these KPIs, following these critical drivers, doing these SOPs. That's the only way to protect the company. And like I said, I got to the point where I felt like I was the only one protecting the company. I don't want to be the only one protecting the company. I want an army of people that are all protecting the company. And in turn, the company will protect us. But we don't have time to have dead weight, extra baggage. If you don't have that willingness, if you don't have that ability, if you don't have the capabilities, like you can't protect the company. That's what it comes down to. I'm hiring people that can protect the company.
So do you feel like you have people in the company now, good subs, insurance people that are protecting the company? Maybe not fully, but are there parts of your company where you're like, yeah, I feel protected in this area?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Where do I start? I would say in any element that I've removed myself from, I feel protected. I've got, some powerful subs that in my database that I can kind of call on for a lot of help, even in personal matters. One of them particularly, a guy named Luis, he's one of our roofers, siders, gutter guys.
He's someone you can just call and say, hey, we got a roof, go get it done.
Yes, I can call him, say we have a roof, go get it done. Hey,
you earn a couple grand from that phone call.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So let's see, office team. I have an office team that, just handles everything phone, everything email. I don't even have to think about those things. they're very neat and organized. They handle all of our invoicing. So I don't have to feel like, who owes us money and are they being chased down? Are they actually giving up? We have an insurance team now that really handles all the insurance on the back end. So if there's anything happening on insurance, all I feel like is there's one centralized place that I have to go to find out everything, and that's our CRM. So it's very useful to have all these dependable people funneling all this information into a CRM when literally I could go anywhere in the world remotely and just open my phone and say, okay, are we on track?
And you don't even have to open your phone. Like you have it set up
Yeah.
where an insurance company is putting something into the CRM, and instead of you having to go find it, it just pushes a notification to you.
Correct.
It says, hey,
Yep.
so this is
Yep.
a new message,
Yep.
right? It's really mastering that report up structure
Yep.
of this component of the business to where you don't have to think about insurance
Yeah.
unless it dings you,
Yep.
your phone, and then you just pull out your phone and you deal with the message that it sends you.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
All right, so we're talking to people who, some people have never met you, right? Probably never even talked to them, right? They're going to be people who watch this that like we don't even know. None of us know.
Right.
What advice do you have for those people?
Act in faith. Some of it's a lot of it's not going to make sense. A lot of it's going to feel like this hurts more than it's helping. But you got to do it. You got to like ease through that hurt, ease through that pain. Sometimes you got to look at your structure, your model that you have. You have to say, this sucks. We have to throw this all away. And that sucks. It does. But like on the other side of it is it's something beautiful. Like the weight of like the determination and like what you have to do and the willingness, like that weighs ounces, but the regret of not doing it is like, it's tons. It weighs a lot. Because essentially I think I would still be having like so many holes in the pipes, like bursting out. I'm just throwing duct tape over them. And actually, instead of actually learning how to weld these together, how to make this like a concrete system that doesn't fail.
What do you do when you get overwhelmed in those situations where you feel like there's so many leaky pipes in the business that you can't manage them all at the same time and you feel like shutting down?
Well, I did face that. I was like kind of burnt out at the end of last year. And I think I did. I just shut down. I was like, for like 2 weeks, I was like, I'm just going to shut down. But then I didn't shut down with just like giving up. I'm done. I shut down with a plan. I was like, hey, I'm going to shut down. I'm just going to stop everything because this is all killing me. And then I'm going to start it again, but I'm only doing one thing at a time. I'm just going to focus, like hyper focus one thing at a time. I don't care what anxiety it gives me. I'm just going to do this until achievement. And then I'm gonna move on to the next thing. And at that point in time, it actually started with after I let everyone go from the holiday lights. I was like, okay, I'm gonna let everything that's been automated at that point for construction. I'm gonna let those people, the insurance people, the office, I'm gonna let them handle that. And I'm just gonna focus solely on holiday light takedowns. So I did that and just really gunned it down. And it really helped me figure out what that system looks like and articulate it. And also see some of the components that I've been asking the employees to do, and then just doing them myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to even create an SOP, even test out the fortitude of a couple of my subs, and just see how well that they could help, do those tasks, follow instructions. But yeah, the way I dealt with being overwhelmed was stopping. The first thing, you have to stop what you're doing. I guess the problem leading up to it is I felt like I couldn't stop all those tasks.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, if I stop, the whole business burns down and it's done, which I didn't realize I was running it into the ground by operating ineffectively. So stopping that really helped me become more effective and then focusing on one thing at a time. And it wasn't like, that's just the new one and it's nothing else. It was like, I'm gonna mold this ball so it's nice and round, and I'm gonna get it rolling, and then I'm gonna go start molding the other ball.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get that one nice and round, then push it, let it keep rolling.
I remember that, dude. I remember this was, so we're recording this in February, and this was in December.
Yep.
Early December, when I remember this happening. You were at the point, you called me and you didn't say these words, but the what I felt is that you were ready to just shut down the whole thing. You're like ready to close the doors and be done with the entire business.
Yeah.
Like that's how fed up you were
Yeah.
with the employees, with the business, with the numbers, and it's just so overwhelming. You're getting a lot of customer calls.
Yeah.
You weren't able to do the job, so you're pushing them off and
Yeah.
pushing them off, and you're getting this big pile of all
Yeah.
of these customers that had these
Mhm.
promises that you weren't able to fulfill them on,
Yeah.
and then you could get a little bit done, but you'd pile on more.
Yeah.
And this list would
Yeah.
get bigger and bigger and bigger
Yep.
every single day.
Yep.
I remember that call. In fact, I have it uploaded to your account as the burnout call. And I remember talking to you about, hey, Seabron, I feel like you are in a car
Mhm.
stuck in the mud, and you have your pedal down to the ground, and you're just spinning your wheels,
Yeah.
and you're just splashing mud everywhere, and you're not getting anywhere.
Mhm.
Why don't you stop for a minute, get out of the car, and figure out, like, why are you stuck? You know, and what
Yeah.
can you do to actually gain some traction so that you can get out of this pit? And literally within a few days, I felt like there was this shift in your mindset when you were able to just take a step back and stop.
Mhm. Yeah.
And now here, a couple months later, you fulfilled all of your obligations.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're in Thailand.
Yeah.
You've been here for a week
Yep.
without really much stress at all.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit,
Yeah.
but not a ton.
Yeah.
That's
I
pretty
agree.
incredible, right? And so there is power in not just grinding all the time and
Mhm.
taking time to really take a step back, look at an overview of your business, stop, remove yourself from the business, and just take some time to think.
Yeah.
Figure out what is the next best step, what's the biggest bottleneck that I can focus on right now, and then just tackling that one thing after you've rejuvenated a little bit.
Mhm.
This is good advice that you started with, and then I just remember that burnout talk, and I just had to like share that because I just remember so distinctly, like, you were really ready to just be done,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And now here, a couple months later, you have enough money
Mhm.
and enough freedom
Mhm.
to go to the other side of the world
Right.
and relax. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What other advice do you have for these guys?
I would say if you do face yourself burning out, like, stop, but really figure out what it's going to take for you to start to feel normal again. That was probably one of the hardest things for me, was like, once I stopped, I was like, how do I get happy again? Like, just from all the stress, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to like create those brain chemicals. It was a combination for me. It was like just hanging out at home, maybe playing some video games. Cold showers, actually, first thing in the morning helped a lot. And just kind of taking it easy, just saying, hey, like, time will come, but just like use this time for yourself. That helped me a lot. But yeah, I would say taking a lot of the advice that I've gotten from Tyler on how a business should operate and should be structured. Even if that hurt, even if that meant like, hey, I have to stop all these tasks and like start working on the business instead of in it, that will take you bounds. So if I could say, even if you don't have the time, make the time to work on your business, because if you don't, you will forever be working in it. And that is something that is so hard to do when you're already in the task. You're like, this can't be stopped, but it has to be stopped.
Mhm.
It is so pertinent that you quit and you get that high level overview, and then you start to move those components around. Because you can't be a one-man army, and if you can, but you will never see the level of success that you'll see with the team.
Yeah, you can if you have good momentum.
Yeah,
right? But if you're spinning your wheels in the mud, that's
Right.
not a
Mhm.
good place to be
No,
by yourself.
right? Yeah,
That's a good time to bring in an army to help you get out of the mud,
yeah.
stop, reset.
Mhm.
But you're right. Yeah, you're about halfway there, right? You have
Yep.
a good
Yep.
portion of your business automated.
Mhm.
You have some ways to go on
Yep.
some of your in-house labor,
Mhm.
but I'm excited for the next steps for you.
Yeah.
Hopefully by now you guys understand who the heck Seabron is. When you see his name pop up, you feel a little bit of synergy and likability toward him as a person. Feel free to reach out to him. This whole thing is intended for you guys to collaborate and talk and help each other grow your
Mhm.
businesses in a non-competitive way. And so hopefully you guys feel more comfortable reaching out to Seabron. He's a smart guy, and he's come a long way in 6 months from starting a brand new company. And I'm really proud of him. And I know is just going to continue being a student and far outpace where he's at now. So take advantage of that by reaching out to him. Do you have any last thoughts?
Yeah, I will say, and I've even on this trip, we mentioned it, me and Colin, my girlfriend. We were Tyler, when we first met him, and we were deciding to partner with the next level, or when we first decided to partner with next level, he did kept mentioning, he's like, dude, like a year from now, your life's going to be different. It's going to be like significantly different. And I didn't quite know, like, I was like, yeah, whatever, you know, we'll see. But I put my head down and just went through the steps. Didn't actually need like a concrete, like him to say, hey, yeah, you're going to be in Thailand in a year. I just put my head down. And I would say anyone working with Tyler, just have that level of faith in him, faith in yourself, and you will be somewhere. It's just inevitable. Really.
Was it harder before it got easier?
Yeah. It was I would say it was so hard, almost to where the point like your brain's gonna pop and you're like, this is crazy. And then it just gets easier. Like every new thing that I learned, I was like, this is gonna kill me. And then like after it didn't kill me, it actually made me better. So like every new thing, you're gonna have to struggle through it. And then, you know, as you sleep and wake back up, it just gets a bit easier and a bit easier and a bit easier. So just take your time with yourself, but also like, remember, if you have a company, you are here to protect your company. So do whatever you can to protect it, and it will protect you.
Awesome. I love it. On that note, we'll go ahead and finish up unless you have any other last thoughts.
Listen to what Tyler says.
Yeah, let's put you to work. All right. We'll see you guys later. Bye.